Hello, everybody, and welcome to KETIV Virtual Academy. My name is Tyler Hart, and I'm with the marketing team involved in running these weekly training and thought leadership sessions. Today's topic is new iLogic features in Autodesk Inventor 2024. Your expert for the day is Eric Paul, a senior application engineer here at KETIV, who will walk you through what's new. If you have questions during the session, please send them to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to address them either during the session or if it makes sense or at the end. And also all of these are recorded and available for distribution on ketiv.com or on our YouTube channel. So go check those out, share them with your peers. Lots of good information going back years. So without further ado, I'll pass things over to Eric to kick us off and introduce himself. Thanks so much for being here, Eric.
Thanks, Tyler. Good morning, everybody. So I am a senior application engineer here at KETIV, and what that means is I do automations for mostly our Autodesk products like Inventor, Vault, AutoCAD, Revit. Right now I've been doing especially a lot of work around design automation and in Inventor. And so that's part of what we'll be exploring today with the new iLogic snippets that are here in Inventor 2024. So today we will take a quick look at the documentation. If you're not used to finding it, it can be a little bit of a trick to see. So I'll show you where you can find that, and you can see past stuff and know where to look in the future for when new versions come out. And then I will do a demo here using a configurator in iLogic, and we'll take a look at some of the new functionality that these snippets allow, as well as take a look at the rules. And we're especially going to be looking at how this can be used to interact with Vault. So we'll find and use existing models from Vault, and we'll also use some helpers to create new models, both in Vault and locally. We can take a look at the differences there. And of course, after that, we'll have a question and answer, and we can review anything you have questions about. All right. Before all that, though, we'll send up a quick poll. Tyler, if you don't mind putting that up. All right, so today's question is, how do you currently host your Vault? Do you host it on premise? Do you have it on the cloud? Or do you not have Vault at all? As the technologies change here, we've seen a shift from on-premise to on-cloud. We even offer some of that ourselves of hosting on cloud. So very curious to see, how things are shifting for you guys right now. All right. So we've got a bit of a split. Looks like still a lot of people doing on-premise. We've got some people starting to do on-cloud. Very cool. And we've also got some people without Vault. All right. Well, hopefully you can see some of the advantages Vault might give you here today. All right, thanks, Tyler. All right. So specifically, some of the functionality we're going to cover today is around checking if a file exists in Vault. So as we're running our little configurator here, we're going to set some options that we want, and we're going to see if we already have that model created. If we do, we're going to download it from Vault. We're going to replace what we currently have with that new model. And then if we don't have it, we're going to see how we can create that new. We're going to create that using a copy functionality in Vault, as well as a local copy functionality. And with both of those, we're going to be using the part numbering scheme from Vault. So that's going to be a cool little addition here. All right, here we go. So let me switch over to Inventor. And today I've been using some Autodesk assets. So these are some free assets that Autodesk puts out for Inventor, so you can test things out here. And the very first thing I'm going to show you, though, is how to find more information about iLogic, some help on it, and where you can understand the new features. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, we'll go to Help. We'll click on Help Topics, and that is going to take us to a web page here. And this is the full Inventor 2024 help page. And if you look over here on the left, we have both a What's New section in general, as well as for iLogic, we see a What's New section here. And the big thing this year is around iLogic and Vault. So we can take a quick look here down at this iLogic Vault class. And here are some of the things we're going to be taking a look at today. So for instance, check if files exist by search criteria. That's one of the ones. Copy a local file. We're going to get new numbers. So this is just the documentation of all the new functionality that it currently has. And we'll be taking a look at a specific subset of these. And if you want to take a look at any of these rules on your own, you don't want to, have to type all these out from seeing it in the video. I do have all these rules up on my GitHub page. So GitHub, Eric, Mark, Paul, and we've got the iLogic Vault snippets here. All these rules are in VB files if you want to get at it later. All right. So to start, let me go ahead and start up our iLogic form here. I just have a very simple configurator. What we're going to do is change the reel out on this rod assembly. So I'll go ahead and bring this up. And what we want to do is say, hey, we have some requirements of what our reel needs to be. For instance, I want a black version or a red version. No, we don't need to check it out. And when we click this Find Reel button, it's going to go up, ask Vault, hey, do I have a reel that is red or blue or orange? And don't have an orange. So we'll be having to make a new one if we want to choose orange. So if I choose red and I find that, click Replace, we're going to download that file. We're going to do a component replace on the reel assembly. And there it goes. Computer's a little slow this morning. And we can see it switched over to red. Again, we could do the same to blue. And after this switches over, I'll switch to the rules. And we can kind of see, how did we get here? How do we make these buttons do what we wanted? So to start, that form is driven by two simple user parameters that I've added, a model name and a colors. So colors, I added the list of colors that I'm expecting, and the model name is just to hold the found file. So let me go over to here in the rules, and we'll start with the first rule that we were looking at, the find reel. All right, and so this is, the connection between, hey, we put something in the form, how is it actually finding what we need? And if we look here on the left, you'll see a new folder for snippets, and these are some of those Vault snippets. And if you hover over, you can see some of the code that's in here. And if you haven't used these snippets before, really what happens is, let me add a little white space. If you double click it, it'll bring in that chunk of code, and you can do little modifications to it to get what you need, but it's kind of like a helper to get you started on the path. So what we're doing here is we're going to search for a parameter, And in Vault, I have on my fishing reel a color user-defined parameter. So this is something I've added custom, and I've made sure to add this value as I go so that when I want to find a black reel, I can find this one. So back to the iLogic. This is almost fully the snippet itself, just pared down a hair. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a dictionary object that's going to hold on to first, what's the name of that user-defined property as we see it in Vault. In this case, it's color. And then what's the value of that? And so that's where I'm going to grab the Inventor user parameter, and that one's called colors. And so in this case right now, it's blue. So as this script runs, it's going to create this and it's going to say, hey, add this search parameter. We're going to be looking for color and we're going to be looking for the value blue. All right, and then next up, we are going to use one of the new methods called check files exist by search criteria. And so in this case, we're going to feed in that dictionary, right? So it can be one parameter, it can be many parameters, as many as required to find what you're looking for. And as I hover over here, we can see some of the optional criteria. So in this case, it's saying the first thing we feed in is the search criteria. The second is, do I need to match all of the criteria? Or, is a partial match okay? And then thirdly, something I don't even have on here, if I want to search a specific folder in Vault, I can add that as well. So in this case, not doing any of that, just very basic, hey, I'm looking for color, and if I get a match, send me back the list of files that have that. And then we have a little error handling here saying, hey, if we didn't find anything, let's add a log note and set the user parameter model name to blank, saying that we didn't find anything. Otherwise, we're just going to grab the first one that we find in the list and add that model name to the value of model name. All right. We don't need to save that. Again, just real quick to see that again. So that means we change the color here. This rule is directly this one here. So we click it and we can see that change. And now we found it in Vault. All right, next up, the replace reel. So in this case, first we want to say, hey, don't run this rule at all if there's no model name. If we have nothing to replace it with, this whole thing's going to break, so don't even try. The second step here is, okay, now that we know this file exists, we need to actually get it from Vault. So this is going to be a little bit different of a function. We're also going to start with some search criteria because the command we're going to use is get file by search criteria. Now, if you remember, there was, if I switch back, a whole host of different, ways you can get a file. If you know the full file path, and then different versions of that, and then by criteria, or if you want to make copies. So there's lots of different options you can have here. We're just choosing one specific version of that. In this case, it's going to be file name. We're grabbing that value from model name, right? So in this case, the fishing reel assembly extreme, because it's red, so it's extreme. And we will now use the get file by search criteria, passing in those search parameters. And if we hover over, again, we can see some of those, and it looks very similar to the last one, right? So the first optional is, hey, do I have to match all the criteria or is a partial match okay? The second one is, hey, when I grab this file, do you want me to check it out? Yes or no? Because it can be checked out, or in this case, I don't want to check it out. I don't need to edit it. I'm just replacing this top level assembly with this new thing. And then thirdly, again, you can search specific folders if you don't have, for instance, unique names turned on. You need to search specific folders. All right. So then again here, we're looking for some error handling to happen first. And we want to make sure that we did in fact find a file. So this value here, this mvault file, this is going to be the file name of what we found. This is going to be the full file name. So this includes like the, say, C drive and your working folders, all that with the file name. And if we find it, we're going to use a couple more iLogic snippets here. So this first one is component replace, right? So it's kind of like when you right click and say replace component, that's that same functionality here. And so we're calling out, hey, this real assembly is the component I want to replace. And then we're saying, what do we want to replace it with? Well, it's going to be this new vault file name that we just picked up. And then thirdly, the option of, do you want to replace all or just this one? And we just want to replace the one, so I say false. And then importantly, in this case, all of my coloring for the real was done in assembly space. And so the view rep matters here, the design view. And so I have to make sure for the design view, I'm setting the default instead of the primary view rep so that we actually see those colors. All right. So going back to the form, what happens when we find one where, it's something that we want to offer, but we don't have it built yet? Well, then what? Can't just replace. Well, got this other option called new real. And so what that's going to do is, in this case, this first version I'm going to show, we're going to make a copy of the base asset of this real in Vault. And then we're going to get that file, make our changes, and then put it back up and have this be an option for us. So I'll go through the steps here first so you can see it in action, and then I'll swing back to the different rules that got us there and investigate that. So I'll go ahead and just click the button, new real. And it's grabbing it from Vault. We're opening it. And one of the cool things that this is doing as well is we're using the numbering scheme from Vault. So you can see this kind of arbitrary naming scheme here. This was something that I've set up in Vault and set as the default numbering scheme. And so we can use that as part of this here too. All right, so I have my base asset that I've copied over. And so I'll quickly just switch to the default VREP so that I can actually change these colors. And take a look at these two guys. We'll find something that looks kind of orange. Let's see. This is probably orangish. Looks pretty orange to me. All right. And then we have one more helper here that's going to help us. Well, first I'm going to check this in, save it and check it in because I'm done editing the file. It's configured as we need. Go to Vault, check this back in. And you'll remember in the beginning, we have that special user-defined property color that's in Vault. And, instead of going back to Vault and editing that after we're done here, we have another little helper script that we'll use called update color. So in this case, we'll go ahead and run it. and it's asking what color do we want to set for that value. I'll say orange, click OK. And if I go back up to my vault here, that color got set to orange. And if I wanted to break things and, you know, change it up and say, oh, this is actually, you know, purple now. You can see it made that change. So luckily this is a very, very quick action here. I'll set it back to orange so we can find it. All right, we're back to orange. Go ahead and close this guy out. We'll go back to our configurator and we'll say, hey, this orange, we want to find it now. And we click find real. Oh, and hey, great. This is the one we're looking for. We hit replace and there it is. All right, so let me take you to this new real rule. Go ahead and edit this. All right. So there's a couple of things we have to set up here. As I mentioned, I want to copy this using a specific numbering scheme that we have set up in Vault. So the first thing we do is set, hey, which numbering scheme do you want to use? You can use the keyword default if you just want to use the one that's set for default for files in Vault, or if you want to name a specific numbering scheme, maybe you have a bunch and you want to make sure you get a specific one, you could set that specific name here. Right. So now we're going to use another specific new Vault function. This one's going to be called get file copy by source file name and auto number. It's a bit of a mouthful, and I'll kind of explain what we're doing here. So the intent is, hey, I know I have this asset in Vault that's, you know, ready to be copied. So I put that as the first input. You know, what do we want to copy? The second input is going to be the numbering scheme that we set earlier. The third input is if there is any other random input parameters that we have. We don't in this case. You know, you can go back to the documentation to see what it's asking for there. And then finally, the last option it's asking for is, do you want to check it out? In this case, absolutely, I want to check it out because I have to make edits to it. So I want it checked out when I have it in front of me. So I set those up. We get back the full file name as a result. We do a little bit of error handling here, make sure we actually have something for the full file name. And if we do, next thing we want to do is open it in front of our face. So we say, yes, please open. Here's the full file name. And then the second input on open is whether or not you want to open it visible. In this case, yes, we absolutely do. So that's one way we can do this. And another way we can do this, also some functionality they added this go around, is maybe you don't want to make a copy in Vault. Maybe you want to make a copy on your local machine instead, because you know you're not sure if it's actually going to make it up to Vault. So you just want to have it locally first. So we have an option for that too. Now, again, we're going to want to use that numbering scheme. So we set that up first. But now we use a little bit different pathway here. So instead of now making Vault take all the work, we're going to have this different pathway where we need to get a little bit more setup before we can do anything, right? So the first thing we're going to do is use this get new number method. And so this will ask Vault for the next available number for that given number scheme. And we'll pick that up here. We do a little error handling, make sure we don't go forward without that new file number. And then we're back to setting up search parameters because instead of telling Vault, what the exact path is for that asset, instead we're going to get the file using some search criteria. I know what the name of the file is that I want to get. So I'm going to create a search criteria here with file name as the property I'm looking for, and then the actual file name here as the value, right? And so then we get to use this get file by search criteria method, and it's asking for, what are those search criterias? Do we need to match all of them? And then once I find it, do you want to check it out? In this case, no, I don't want to check it out actually, because I'm not editing what we grab. We're going to make a copy of it. So we say false to checkout. Again, some error handling. Make sure we actually found something before we move on. And if we did find it, we're going to use this other method here called copy local file. And so it's asking for, hey, give me the existing file and tell me what you want the file name to become. So as we make this copy, what should it be called? And so we fill out what we found here, and then we fill out the file number that we collected first, and that should give us that local file copy. And again, we're just going to open this up, and we're going to say, what do you want to open up, and do you want to open it visible or not? Looks like I forgot that here. So yes, we would want to set that as true. And all right, so those are the two different ways you can get at that, right? Because maybe you have a different workflow that works better for one way or the other. Right, and then we go ahead and take a look at this guy again, and we can look at one of the external rules I made to update color, right? So this is a very specific command, but maybe we have color set on different things, and so setting this rule to a particular model doesn't make as much sense. It's something that's just a helper script in the background that we can use all over the place. We'll take a look at what we've done here. So the first thing we have is we're going to ask the end user to set a value for that color. So we're using a input box. This is a Visual Basic functionality, and that's the thing that popped up there. And we give it just two very basic inputs. We're going to set the text that the user sees, and then a title. And then the value we collect is what the user types in. And so that's where I put in orange and purple, etc. And then here we have a bit of setup, all to get to the point of setting the file properties, the user-defined properties in this case for that color. So let me get to this part first, and then I'll walk us backwards for how we got there. So in the end, in order to make that update, we need the inputs of what is the vault file path. So not the local file path, but the vault file path. Usually that has the $sign at the beginning. And then what are the parameters that you want to set, as well as its value. So again, it's a dictionary, that key value pair where we say this property with this value. Right. So in order to get there, we start by asking our current document its full file name. And because we have to convert this from a local file path to a vault file path, we grab the workspace path. This is, specific to our machine. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's create a new string that starts with our Vault Designs workspace, and we're going to start the file path after our workspace path. So what is that going to look like? So on this machine, I think I have, let's take a quick look here. This is going to be Vault Sandbox Designs, right? So this is going to be the workspace that we pick up here. And it's where we want to skip forward to and replace with designs. Because in this case, I've got fishing reel assembly, or the fishing rod assembly, actually. And so I want to replace this whole chunk with the $ designs, root designs. And then we'll move on and say, okay, and then it's workspaces, it's fishing rod assembly, so that it matches this $ designs, workspaces, and then the reel assembly. All right. So then the next trick is Vault Path wants the // not the \/. And so we have to do a replace for that. The File Explorer does it the opposite than the Vault. So we got to make that change. And that's it. All we do now after we collect that is send it to Vault and say, hey, here's that property to update. Please let me know if anything bad happened. And then if anything bad happened, we add stuff in the log. Which, by the way, if you're having trouble finding the log, hit this plus button. And it's one of the options that you can have here. I believe any of these have it, right? So in my particular case, I like having the iLogic tab underneath the model tree. And so that's also usually where I have the iLogic log as well. You can see, some of the logging that was done as we were live on the demo. And, when we were looking for that orange initially, it gave us this error. You can see it's creating the copy and etc. All right. All right. And so then after we created that, after we did the update, that's when we were able to go back to the form and find that and do the replace as we were hoping. All right. So I think that's the end of the demo portion here that I wanted to show you guys. Again, as a reminder, let's see, I think on the next slides here, we've got the specific methods that we looked at today. Just so as you guys are looking through that help or trying to find it the other way around, these were the very specific ones that we used. And again, if you're trying to find all of that stuff, go up to the help button, you go to the help tab and then help topics. That's going to get you to the home here. And then you can go over to this iLogic API section and look for more information here. These can be very helpful. For instance, if you click in on one of these to understand it better, it gives you a more detailed information on what exactly it's looking for. And if you want to see any of those rules and you don't want to have to type them out again, I've got them up on my GitHub if you want to go grab that. All right. So at this point, I'll send it over to the question and answer.
Thank you so much for your time today, Eric. We don't have any questions coming in yet, but it looks like we have some good feedback from people who got a lot from it. So yeah, appreciate your time today. We can give people a few more seconds for questions here, but really appreciate your time. Oh, here we go. We do have one question for you, Eric. Have there been any situations that the new iLogic snippets didn't cover where you needed to go back to using the Vault API?
Um, can you say that one again? I'm not sure I understood that.
Yeah. Has there been a situation where the snippets didn't cover maybe like as far back as you needed to go using the API?
Um, I'm not sure I understand that one still.
Gotcha.
You're only going to be able to find these new snippets in Inventor 2024. So if you're on an older version, unfortunately, you won't be able to use these. So I guess that maybe, I'm not sure if that's the question. Another part of this might be, if I'm finding that iLogic can't quite do all the things I was hoping to, but it's right there in Inventor and oh man, why can't I do it? One of the things to remember about iLogic is it's kind of two things in one. It's both a this kind of collection of snippets and special shortcuts that help you get to things faster. But this is also kind of a gateway to the full Inventor API. So, we can get at the full Inventor API through here. You can bring in your own DLLs, you can bring in your own forms. So this can really just be a gateway to more in-depth, more complicated programming stuff as well.
Got it. Another person asked for your GitHub link. Is that github.com/EricMarkPaul?
That's it. Now I will send it in chat here. There it is. You got it. Ah, yes, that's a good point. Okay, so someone brought up in chat about, what these Vault snippets can be used for. Do note, this is only available for Vault professional users. So if your Vault server is just Vault Basic, unfortunately, these will not work. This is only for Vault Professional. Thank you for that note. And yes, I also hope that this will become available to Vault Basic users as well.
Great. Eric, thank you again for your time today, for sitting down with us and walking us through this. This will be available on our YouTube channel as well as KETIV.com if anybody would like to share it with coworkers or peers. And we will have another session next Thursday. So please join us then. Thanks so much, Eric.
Thanks, everyone.